and give Michael the first crack at this. And Michael, you heard Tim and I just talking about this performance and about what Giannis did. If you think with a typewriter in mind and you're writing a headline for this night, how do you start?
I heard you guys talking about relief. And there's so many times I've gotten to go in locker rooms in the past 40 years and just wait around for a while. I don't want to be in the first wave of reporters who got to ask, what were you feeling? I liked it, and I'm going to speak for Stephen A. because I know he did. We both used to do this. You wait till somebody's had a chance to think about it and let it soak in. And so many times I've had guys say, relief. Relief was the first emotion, and I thought about that with Giannis, and I was there in the Toronto series. I wasn't in the bubble, but I was there for the Toronto series, and Tim is so right. Toronto, they stopped him, and by stopping him, they stopped them, the Bucks. And Giannis had to live with that, but one of the things I just admire about him is, and this is the bias of a kid from the Midwest, 79 miles down the road. He didn't feel the need to go to Miami or Los Angeles or Brooklyn or anywhere on the coast in a perceived bigger, more glamorous place. He said, I'm here. I'm right here. I'm right here with these cheeseheads. This is where I'm going to be. I'm going to re-sign here. I'm not going to wait for the money to become available in Miami or Dallas or anywhere else, New York, Madison Square Garden. I'm setting my roots down here. And he did it here. And I'm not going to pretend to know Giannis that well. I know him a little bit. But I loved when he did that. And he owned whatever shortcomings there might have been or perceived shortcomings, not winning. And he did it here. And it just, I think to a segment of us, and you guys being East Coast guys, the gentleman to my right and both of you, you may not understand what that feels like here in the fly across states, right? But people here understand what that means. And there's a special relationship now with Giannis that they're going to credit him for forever, because he didn't pick up and leave and go assemble a big whatever in a big market. He did it here. And I think all of that had to be going through his mind when we saw him sit on that bench and tears come to his eyes.
I can appreciate Michael Wilbon's point. It's very astute, as always, no doubt. But I'm going to tell you what I think is the biggest thing we should peel away from what we've seen from the great, phenomenal performance he put forth tonight with 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Just a sensational performance, Scott. The man never ran from adversity. That is the key to me. It's not, yes, you could say it's about staying in Milwaukee, and I'm not going to dispute that by any stretch of the imagination. But he didn't run from adversity. This is not a guy that lost in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago to Toronto because he had a bad night. He had 4 bad consecutive games because Kawhi Leonard stood up in the locker room after going down 0-2 and told Coach Nick Nurse, I'm guarding Giannis. And he picked him up past half court and prevented him from going downhill. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, devoid of a perimeter shot, devoid of stout shooting from the free throw line, seemed relatively helpless. We saw what happened to them in the bubble against Miami last year. This year, you've got people booing him, you've got people heckling him, you've got people teasing him about his game. No perimeter shot, clearly horrid from the free throw line. And he kept coming. He wouldn't stop. The ridicule, the vitriol, the humiliation, it didn't matter. One loss in a playoff game, going down in another playoff series, it didn't matter. He kept coming. And somehow, some way, you just got to a point where you said, excuse me, they can't stop him. Even though he's missing free throws, they can't stop him. Even though he doesn't have a jump shot, they can't stop him. And he kept coming. And then sure enough, as the games waned and the series waned, he started hitting more free throws. And then he ends it and he culminates it. In his final games, Giannis Antetokounmpo shot 89.5% from the free throw line.
He was Rick Barry.
17 of 19 from the free throw line. So we can look at the 16 for 24. You're big. They've got a width. They're thin at the front line. They can't stop you. You look like the big man in a small man contest going against this undersized Phoenix Suns. But where he really stole the show was that he demanded the ball, he constantly attacked, he knew he was going to get fouled, and he didn't care. And when you do something like that and you overcome that level of adversity, there's so much that so many of these players in the NBA can peel from what they saw him do tonight. and that's attack his weakness. As Cam Chancellor for the Legion of Boom once told me when I asked him a question about, what is it about y'all? Why are y'all so special? He says, we attack our fears. We come into training camp, and anything that scares us, we demand that we go through it so we're not scared anymore. That's what we saw Giannis Antetokounmpo do tonight, and that's why everybody looks at him and says, wow, what a deserving champion he is. It is special.
Him not running from adversity. I think about a man at 20, he was 24.
I can't hear you, Scott.
I don't know if you guys lost me. You got me? Can you hear me?
Scott, we lost you, I think.
We lost you, Scott.
Sure
We can't hear you.
lost you.
We'll get back to you in just a second. We're going to hear from the Suns as we scoot out the
Just mean back to work. Back to work. You know, none more, none less or whatnot. We sort of saw what it takes to get there, and, you know, hopefully we see what it takes to get, you know, past that.
Go ahead, Rachel.
What does it feel like?
I feel like we just lost. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Knowing that for so long you worked to get to this point, is there any solace in, hey, I've had this experience
No.
and I can learn from it and I might get back here?
I mean, it'll take a while to process this or whatnot, but it's the same mentality. Get back to work. You know what I mean? I ain't retiring, if that's what you're asking. That's out. So, you know, back to work.
It's my first time doing it. You know, I've never dealt with this kind of hurt as a head coach. And I don't know. I just think that, you know, when you go through something like this for the first time, you don't expect to get this far. And so from that standpoint, what a huge accomplishment by our players to get to the playoffs for the first time and get all the way to the finals and have a chance to play for a championship. Like, that's hard to process. You typically get to the first round and you're done, and you learn, and then you try to get to the second round. We got all the way to the finals, and that hasn't been lost in my thinking. There's just a pain that goes with your season being over, but I've never dealt with this, and so, you know, I'm grateful, like I said, but I know this is going to hurt for a while.
Sorted out the microphone issues. One more thought with Stephen A. and Michael. And shout out to my guy Alex Toussaint kicking my butt on the Peloton bike. He has a saying that we didn't come this far to come this far. And for Phoenix, that's the reality, right? That'll land with them, that they gave all of this and they got to this point, but it wasn't enough. And, you know, only one team can lose. And maybe if you guys just each have a thought on what Phoenix ought to take out of a proud run that comes up just a couple of games short, what ought it be, Michael?
Well, Scott, I talked to Chris Paul. We're working on this project together about his life, not this season, his life. And he sort of let me in on the secret a few days in advance that he was probably going to be traded to the Suns. And even as excited as he was to be playing with Booker and be playing for Monty Williams and this cast of characters that he liked from afar, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they thought they could get anywhere near this far. They thought they could be good. They knew they were going to make the playoffs. They knew they were going to make the playoffs. That playoff drought thing of 11 years was over. But to think that they were just exuding confidence that they were going to get to the NBA Finals, anybody who says that now is insane. I mean, you heard Monty just talk about how, you know, normally you get to the first round and figure out how you're going to get to the second round. If you get to the second round, you figure out how you're going to, and it's piecemeal. This wasn't piecemeal. This was meteoric. I mean, I did talk to Chris Paul midway through the season, and he said, you know what? We could be really good. And by, you know, in stages, they knew they could be really good to great, somewhere in there, and they were going to pursue that. So this, to me, and I don't know that they'll feel this way for weeks. It's going to take time, like they both said. To me, this is an overwhelming successful season. The Phoenix Suns haven't been in the finals in almost 30 years.
Yep.
And Chris Paul comes and he takes a group, this group, Ayton, who had never really been coached, not really, and he takes this group and he goes to the finals?
Yeah.
Seriously, this is like I'm not going to call it bad news bears, but you know what I mean? This is the kind of story you don't see in pro sports.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I've been in the journalism profession for nearly 30 years, and when you talk about a guy that's going to be chronicling the life story of a guy like CP3, I can think of nobody more qualified than my brother right here, Mike Wilbon. So I just want to say that. The other thing that I want to say is this. I understand everything that Mike Wilbon just said about CP3 and the Phoenix Suns and how meteoric this season has been for them. But what is inescapable, Scott, is the profound sadness that so many of us feel for him because we've known him for so long. We know how dedicated and committed he is, how tirelessly he has worked throughout the years. And he's an acquired taste. He's not for everybody because his priority has always been about winning and doing it the right way. And he didn't care if he ruffled your feathers along the way because the bottom line was about getting the job done. And for 16 illustrious years as a quintessential point guard in this game, this is the closest he had ever been. You saw the great LeBron James tweet after game 1 down, 3 to go. After game 2 down, 2 to go. And you got this itch, sensing what you were seeing from Milwaukee, that the door was closing on them and that we would be sitting here or standing here celebrating CP3. And for 4 games later to be sitting here lamenting the fact that his team couldn't get it done, knowing he's 36 and that he was the best player on the court for the Phoenix Suns tonight because Booker didn't have it, Bridges wasn't ready, DeAndre Ayton looked absolutely petrified, Crowder didn't have it for the most part even though he had a decent game, and you weren't able to get the level of production from the pieces around you that you customarily was getting throughout this season. To be 36 and to have it in this way, it's hard to look at him and say, you know something, he'll be back. A matter of fact, the temptation is to say this was his chance. And that's the hard part about all of this. You know Giannis Antetokounmpo is more than worthy and deserving. Right. But you also know that CP3 was as well. And only one of them can walk home with the championship. And it wasn't CP3.
And that's why I always find myself, man, referring to the Roosevelt speech about the man in the arena who strives valiantly, you know, who knows the great devotions, who errs while daring greatly, all of that certainly lands with me tonight because he was in the arena, and 6 games later, the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis with a 50-point performance are the champions. Your time so appreciated throughout the finals. Your company is always valued, and I enjoyed it as always. Be well. Stephen A. Smith, Michael Wilbon, thank you.
So did we.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.